Well, this has been the bloodiest month with job cuts since this year. And I can make another comfortable prediction say inflation's going to come down. Yes, inflation is going to come down a lot. How do I know? Well, if you don't have money, you can't spend it. And if you don't have credit cards to put it all on, then you can't spend it either. So let's look at the layoff tracker and see who is laying people off, because this has been the most brutal month um, since the start of the year. And I said in 2024, it's going to get worse before it's going to get better. I don't know if it's going to get better in 2025, but I think as soon as rates come down a little bit, we're going to see a little bit of a better hiring outlook. But right now, we're in layoff territory big time. So Tally just laid off people in San Francisco Bay Area. Cisco laid off 4,000 people, San Francisco Bay Area. Branch IO, San Francisco Bay Area, laid off 100 people. Fastly laid off people, San Francisco Bay Area. Even Bright laid off people, Bay Area. LegalZoom laid off people this month. And, all these other big companies did. Dell laid off people and all these other ones, and Intel laid off people, San Francisco Bay Area. So we're looking at all of these crazy layoffs in August, and we're only at the 15th day mark, right? We're only halfway through, and it has been the bloodiest month with layoffs so far. So who else is going to also make some more layoffs? What other company is thinking about it and they just have not announced it yet? So one of these companies, big Fortune 500 companies, is also going to start doing more layoffs, right? Because you see the trend, they want to get their numbers up, and the easiest way is to just cut people, right? Because most of them cannot get out of real estate contracts because it's just too expensive to buy out, and they have 5, 6, 7, 8 years with 15 years contracts on these buildings if they don't own them outright. So, or if they're owning, have a mortgage on them and whatnot. But we are in a spot now where inflation is coming down. And you're going to be like, what? How's inflation going to come down? Well, just like I said before, people cannot pay their bills, and people cannot afford their car. People cannot afford the lifestyle, frankly, that they've got accustomed to in the last few years. And what is really surprising to me is that a lot of people thought that it's never gonna turn. People thought that it is always gonna be like that. And we're so short-sighted, right? And one thing that I've noticed is that especially with Americans, is that we kind of get used to the comforts, right? And I'm included in that. We'll get used to it. We're like, oh man, the economy's going great. We job hop, we do this, we do that. And don't worry, I'll find another job easily. And now all of a sudden, we're in a downturn market. And for a lot of millennials, this is the first downturn market that we're actually in the middle of our career. And that is not what we're used to, because we were probably in college, when 2009, 2010 hit. So we were only on an upwards trend. And now we're all of a sudden in a downwards trend. And we do not know yet how to handle boomers. Yeah, they knew. They've already been through one of when stuff went down and all this other crazy stuff that went on in 2008 and 2009. But now we're in it and we're living it. And Gen Z is the generation that hasn't had any luck yet, because they were in during COVID. They got COVID. Now they're dealing with this stuff, and they haven't had any time to actually purchase real estate, to go out and make a name for themselves and start becoming contributing in a major way to the economy before they've got hammered with this downturn in the market. And once you come out of college now, it's so competitive that you just can't do it. I mean, if you're in college, during all this, and now you're like, I'm ready to hit the job market. And when you look at these job descriptions, I feel like we're in a situation now where where a bunch of people actually, let me think about this so I say it right. So where a bunch of people actually take a level down. So if you were a manufacturing engineer 2, you go to a 1 because, you can just find another job. You can just do it like that because, you have the experience, and you rather downgrade 1 and be in unemployment longer, and you're not going to job hop to a manufacturing engineering 3 because, it's so competitive, and people from, above like manufacturing engineer manager, something like that, are taking now roles below because it's just so competitive. And I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it, but it's just the way the world goes. So don't shoot the guy who's telling you it. It's just how it is out there in the job market right now. So when you're thinking about, job hopping, doing something, I just advise you to be very, very smart. Do your due diligence and be aware of how it is out there. Because the worst thing that can happen to you is that you cannot find it. You put your 2 weeks notice in, you're burnt out, you're doing something, and you can't find another job. You just saw the listings I've read in the Bay Area, how many layoffs there are. And when you're working for a startup, you did all these, you're a performer and all this stuff. You're a high performer, you're an achiever, and you sacrificed a lot to be in these startups, and now they're going out of business because getting another funding round is almost impossible now with all these, layoffs, with all these, with all these high interest rates and all this kind of other stuff. So you got to be aware of how the market is going. And will it be better? Eventually it will. And people say, oh, doom and gloom. No, I'm not saying doom and gloom. I say it goes with the tides, right? It's like today is low tide, where the tide is going out, but the tide will come in again. And I don't know when that is, if that's next year, if that's 2026, I don't know. But for the tide to come back in a little bit, we need to just cut the interest rate just a little bit. And I'm not talking about bringing it down to zero. I'm just talking it a little bit. So investors will look at, oh, I could invest in bonds, or I could invest in companies. Let me take a gamble on companies so people can actually get hired. But when it makes no sense to buy into bonds, why do that? And so the same is with real estate investments, right? So when you're thinking about investing into real estate, and you look at the cap rate of of properties, then why would you, as as a numbers guy, invest into a property when you can get a CD or something else, backed by the government for 4.5%, when a rental property pays you 6%, at cash flow and all this kind of other stuff? Why would you take that chance if you can get 4.5 to 5%, on a CD without doing any work, and the rental property is going to be 5, 6, something like that? So why would you even take that chance? And a lot of people do not understand that they can get their money working for them without doing much. And this is great for people that have cash on hand. But now what we're seeing is that money's leaving that system and moving into these bonds and all that kind of stuff. And then people like you and me are thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to, get a job? How am I going to, pay for a living, right? And then when these layoffs happen, you don't have the money. You don't have money to go to Home Depot on my video yesterday, right? You don't have money to go to Home Depot and, do renovations. You don't have money to buy new cars. You don't have money to go on vacations and all that, unless you obviously put it on credit cards. But at one point, the credit card thing is also going to pop, right? And so is it with the student loan thing. Everything is starting to retake up, right? Is to start picking back up again. So you got to pay for your student loans, you got to pay for your debts and all that kind of stuff, because it's just gonna ding you down the road. The bill will always come due. I should actually make a shirt that says the bill will always be due. So it doesn't matter if it's due now or if it's due in 2 or 3 months. And during forbearance, people should have actually paid it down. So then they could have saved some money and actually put that aside, those few $100s every month, and said, if we're gonna start picking that back up again, then we don't have to worry about, making the payments and whatnot. And the worst thing is that I tell people is do not bet on the government to put you into forgiveness, right? One of the biggest things is why would I pay it off if the government's going to forgive you? They are forgiving some loans, but not everybody's. And when you're going to hope on that, it's like it might not never happen. And so it's better for you to just start making the payments, start putting it back in. But if you don't have the money, you can't make the payments, obviously. And that's what I've been telling you guys. You need a good job. And if not, you need to network on LinkedIn. You got to do, you got to apply, and you got to find something how to do it. And people say, oh me, people in the comment section write me emails. You should teach how to make money online. How to do how how to become as an entrepreneur. And I tell people, it's not easy to be an entrepreneur. I don't consider myself an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is somebody like Gary Vee and, and Shaq O'Neal. These people are entrepreneur. I'm a self-employed guy. I'm self-employed. I have small team. If my team doesn't make money, I don't make money. If they're not bringing in enough revenue, I'm not making money. So I am not an entrepreneur. I'm a self-employed kind of person, right? So that is also and it is crucial for you to understand that if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to do something on the side, you want to do something yourself, you got to start with doing it as a side hustle. You got to have your 9 to 5, pay for it, and then start it on the side and make money that way. Even Stephen Graham says when he was working real estate, he did that at during the daytime, and at nighttime he started doing YouTube. And once YouTube has become such a big chunk of his money that he's like, oh my gosh, I can actually do the switch to entrepreneurship and then be okay because I'm still making enough money. But now we're in a recession. So now, if you want to sell stuff like necklaces online and sell jewelry or something like that, it's not a necessity. That's why Home Depot's struggling. And if Home Depot's struggling, Domino's isn't seeing any deliveries, they're saying that, hey, you people are only picking it up because they're saving a few dollars. Then you got to be aware that, hey, is my business going to be um, is it going to be important enough for people to spend money? Is it going to save them money while I open up this business, right? So in other words are people gonna take out the credit cards and pay for it? Or are these people gonna say, it's not worth it to me because it's a luxury item, right? And yes, there's always people that don't mind spending money on luxuries, but the common the common American does not have money right now to spend on luxury items. So a whole nother perspective of turning it, right? So if you're in one of these tech companies in the Bay Area, you got to be really, really aware where your company's heading and seeing what is next, right? Because the past is a predictor of the future. So if your company hasn't been doing so well in the last year or so, there might be layoffs, right? If you're working from home, they're calling you back. That's pretty much a sure sign that they're going to say, we're going to start doing layoffs. And I don't want that to happen to you guys, but I'd rather hear it from me and, start preparing and start dealing with the idea that, hey, I could get laid off, and be like, okay, I might get laid off. So I'm start prepping my resume. I'm start, looking at jobs, doing this. And, and it might never come, then being unprepared and having this huge meltdown when it does come. So just some different ways of looking at it. But once that does happen and you are going to get laid off, you don't have to actually, go out and buy coffee, do all these things because you don't have the money. And unemployment isn't going to save you. And I'm always telling that people like, hey, just because, there is an unemployment office doesn't mean that you're going to have a bunch of, unemployment coming in and that they're going to help you out. These people at the unemployment office are probably overwhelmed. They hate their job and they don't care about you. So doing something where you're like, oh my God, I'm going to get unemployment, I'm going to take some time off, is not what I want you guys to do. I'd rather you guys go out and start looking and, and still filing for unemployment, and you'll get it eventually, hopefully. But, there's different states depending on where you watch this. You got to look at, for some states, it's way, way harder to file unemployment than it is in others. And I really hope that you do get it if you paid into it, right? Because that is your right, actually, to get unemployment if you paid into it, right? And yeah, it is just crazy, crazy. But on the good hand, You know, I always try to end my videos on a good note is inflation's coming down. People don't have the money to spend on, you know, remodels and all these other things, on all these other items. So you're gonna have, you're actually gonna have cheaper products because people cannot spend it. So when people are gonna spend it, when people don't have the money to spend it on items that aren't necessities, prices are gonna come down because they need to get rid of them. It costs money to shit on the shelf. They have warehouses that cost money. They have all these things in the supply chain that cost money. So inflation, pretty confident that it's gonna go down because nobody's buying. And when the Fed told, you know, everybody that we're gonna get inflation under control, I did not think that they were gonna talk about just laying off half of the United States and then just, you know, hang them out to dry and say, you know, haha, we're gonna get inflation under control. That is the most important part. But now we know that that's what they were trying to do. And now I'm looking at it like, oh, you guys just, you know, hang everybody out to dry. And you're just like, oh, why should we care? You know, why should we care? I have a job, so I'm not gonna care about you guys. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. When you have people that are being let go and get inflation under control that way, I feel like that was the worst way of doing it. And instead of raising them these interest rates slowly, they will just like hold my beer and we're just gonna yank them up to, you know, as much as possible. So all the liquidity just dries up in the market and people are holding on for dear life. And then the Fed's like, haha, we got inflation under control. Of course you can. You can also go back to the gold standard and ruin everything, you know, and just get back to and make products so expensive, you know, and do all these kind of things where you can do it, but is it actually worth it, you know? So just some things to think about. But man, you know, that was a real shitty thing that they did with those high interest rates. Oh my gosh. And these people that got laid off, these 35,000s, yeah, I bet you they did not think that, you know, that they're going to be on the chopping block. So yeah, I am amazed by how this all went down with how fast, you know, the economy turned. And I'm actually surprised that, you know, we're lasting for this long and that we're holding on for dear life because, man, it's not pretty. It is not pretty. But inflation's down. So we got to just hang tight, see what happens next. And this was it for this video. Please like and subscribe. If you haven't already, if you like this type of content, you can always shoot me an email about an interesting article you saw. My email is in the about section. You can email me. And yeah, if you haven't followed me on LinkedIn, and I will see you guys in the next one.